and also the achievements of various yoga engines during the last several decades. Their work is going to be documented and demonstrated. It is going to be inaugurated by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister. So that's why this time, why I mentioned in the beginning, I'm so happy. So we work hard. When we get the fruits, it gives the happiness. So I'm happy whenever all our yoga family meets, we talk each other, we exchange. Yes, there are always differences. Difference will continue. They will not end. But within the differences, with the differences, we come to the consensus. We together with those common points, we work together for the common goals. That's happening. That gives a lot of happiness. And CII is also promoting now. The Subodhi has taken charge of the Ayush section, and they are also doing a wonderful job. In behalf of the Ministry of Ayush, on behalf of my secretary, Shri Dr. Vaidya Rajesh Kotechaji, I thank and congratulate CII and all the experts present for their extreme present. And on behalf of Moraji Desai and Yoga, also it is the 100-day, one of the 100 days countdown program. And Goa, this is the first. And I congratulate you all. And I do hope that we all together work hard, take the yoga to the every family, every house, so that we all can live healthy and happy. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Mr. Subodh Tiwari to kindly deliver the closing remarks for the session, please.
Thank you, Dr. Basava Reddy, for such an insightful talk. Really inspiring, and it gets everyone together. So thank you so much for it. And I thank my colleagues also who have been part of the inauguration. Without much ado, I think we all are looking forward to the next session, which will throw light in depth with all the researchers and people who are there in the field to take us in depth to understand how yoga will take us towards mental well-being. So I thank all of you who are there in the inauguration, and I'll ask Deepa to take it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the eminent panelists, and thank you for enriching us with deep knowledge on yoga today. We will now move on to our next session, which will be focusing on yoga for humanity and focus on mental well-being. The session is going to be moderated by Mr. Arun Pandala, who is Acharya and Director, Shivanand Yoga Center. Welcome, sir. We have with us Dr. Raghavinder Rao, who is Director, Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, CCRYN, under the body in Ministry of Ayush. We have Dr. Hemant Bhargav, who is Assistant Professor Yoga, Department of Integrative Medicine, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Dr. Reema Dada, who is Faculty in Charge Molecular Reproduction and Genetics Facility, Department of Anatomy from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. We have Dr. R.S. Bhogal, who is Joint Director from Kavelya Dham SM Bhayam Samiti, and Dr. S.P. Mishraji, who is Vice President and CEO, PRCB of India Yoga Association. Welcome to all. And now may I request Mr. Arun Pandala to kindly moderate the session and take it forward, please.
Neeraja ji, I will take a leave. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Nisha sir. Namaskar. Namaskar, Arun.
Namaskar, sir.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Yes, thank you. I will take a leave because I had some other things. Thank you.
Namaste and good morning to all. A very august gathering of speakers this morning. The world is going through more turmoil than ever before, maybe even more than all the world wars put together in the past. And it is also interesting to see how people are getting drawn more and more every day to the practice of yoga and yogic sciences. It seems as if this kind of a situation was necessary, maybe, for people to start building on their own personal health as well as family and social health. This kind of is critical because this is a forum and a group of people that can lead the world in the spread of yoga. And what better than to mark the calendar in this way, leading up to the 21st of June, the International Day of Yoga. I'm very happy to moderate the session. Mental health is obvious, is the genesis of all other kind of health, including personal health, physical health, as well as social and planetary health. And if we can have good mental health, then everything else follows. And yoga is the best training for that. I'd like to call upon, first of all, Dr. Rima Dada, to please present your views on how the external environment plays a role in our own internal environments and how we can bring about a kind of better response to the world as we see it today. Dr. Rima?
Namaste, sir. Thank you so much. I'll just share my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to deliver this talk on a topic which is very near and dear to me. I've been working on yoga for the last 12 years on various complex diseases. And today I would be talking on the yoga, which is medicine for mental health problems. And my talk, I just like to give you an overview. First, I would highlight why mental health disorders are on an increase. And in the latest report by WHO, it states that in the first year of pandemic alone, there was a 25% increase in the incidence of stress and depression. And it has been now acknowledged that for achieving the global developmental goals, we need to have optimal mental health. I would like to tell you that how various modifiable, significant modifiable risk factors are there which can actually prevent the onset of these mental health disorders. What is the role of the father, who plays a major role in the transmission of these disorders and which is largely ignored, and how yoga, which is a profound science and technology of of health, which helps to maintain both physical as well as mental health, is the need of the hour. And in this age of super specialization, we need to focus on a holistic method which targets every cell of the body. I would touch upon various factors which have led to this huge increase in the incidence of mental health disorders, that is adverse childhood events, poor nutrition, which impacts the gut microbiome and the various factors it secretes, the impact of our lifestyle, habits, emotions, how they program our genes. I would like to emphasize again that though we blame our genotype for various issues and disease and health states that we experience, it's important to know that it is our lifestyle, our habits, our emotions, which are directly impacting the genome by the way of the epigenome, and thus which has led to a significant increase in the incidence of mental health disorders. In addition to that, I would like to tell you that yoga is the art of living, and not only what we do on the mat, but it's the way of our life. And if we practice all the yama niyamas, you'll see that all these factors like adverse childhood events, which are due to poor social interactions and a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, all these can be prevented. And I would show you how our studies have actually documented that how yoga promotes neuroplasticity, not only brings about changes in the biochemistry, but various neurochemicals, but also we can actually change the gray and the white matter content in the brain, bring about actual anatomical changes in the brain, which enhance emotional resilience and help us to combat various life stress issues, and how it impacts both the mitochondrial and the nuclear DNA integrity, delays our rate of biological aging, And this is done because yoga switches on gene programs which are beneficial to us. It decreases inflammation by promoting immune homeostasis, which is very, very critical because there is an early onset of complex lifestyle diseases like Alzheimer's, where there is poor cognition, memory. So all those can be delayed. And how yoga is vital because not only does it promote neuroplasticity, it helps us to maintain the hormonal milieu, delays the rate of biological aging, and thus is critical for mental health and emotional resilience. So the first thing I would like to touch upon is a topic which is largely ignored, but one of the main factors which is actually responsible for this steep increase in the incidence of mental health issues, and that is adverse childhood experiences. Topics like physical abuse, parental separation, we have shifted from joint to nuclear families and now to single parents. For example, bullying, as well as sexual abuse, parents taking drugs, there are a number of diseases in the family, for example, death, divorces. All this has had an impact on children, and there has been a huge increase in the number of these adverse childhood events which lead to toxic stress. And it's been reported that 67% of the adults have had one or more adverse childhood events, and this is actually responsible for a large number of diseases several decades later. Why it's important to study this is because not only does it impact the individual's physical and mental well-being, but it also impacts the person's germ cells and thus has transgenerational effects which are carried because of the epigenetic changes which are stable and they are inherited. So these adverse childhood events, they disrupt neural development. They are responsible for diseases like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, non-allergic asthma, obesity, overweight, learning and behavioral disorders, ischemic heart disease, which is one of the major causes of death. It is responsible for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, depression, cancer, and there is also a 20-fold increase in the incidence of suicide in people who have had adverse childhood experiences in childhood trauma. The other factor which I would like to touch upon, which is actually responsible for a huge increase in mental health disorders, is unhealthy diet. A diet which is calorie dense, but nutritionally depleted, a diet which is rich in trans fats, salts, and sugars, which is responsible for the epidemic of obesity, inflammatory bowel disease, but also responsible for a huge number of mental health disorders like depression, cognitive decline, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, autism, and multiple sclerosis. Now, it's well known that this diet not only is responsible for our health, but also for the health of the gut microbiome, where you have billions of bacteria which are secreting various factors which are key factors for immune regulation, and 90% of the feel-good hormone serotonin is secreted by this gut microbiome. It's so important that it's been seen that when we have an unhealthy diet, it leads to gut microbiome dysbiosis and a decrease in the level of serotonin and a huge increase in the levels of depression. So it has been seen that when we have whole plant-based foods, it actually nourishes the gut microbiome. And there are several studies which show that when children have unhealthy diet, which is rich in trans fats, salt, sugars, and refined processed foods, their scores in various tests the next day are much poorer as compared to those children which have whole plant-based foods. So another concept which I would like to touch upon is the concept that, that we always blame the women for all the health issues that you children experience. For example, if there is infertility, recurrent spontaneous abortions, congenital malformations, any like autism, or these various mental health issues, it's always the women who's blamed. But then this was the concept of developmental origin of health and disease, which has now shifted to the concept of paternal origin of health and disease, which actually shows you that the lifestyle of the father, the diet of the father, the experiences the father has, all impact not only the person himself, but also that of the germ cells, which has an impact on the child that is born. So this concept came off that biological parenting begins much before conception. It begins when parents themselves are conceived. This is so important because we tend to improve our lifestyle just before planning to have a child. But it's important to understand that these germ cells actually have a memory, and this memory is stored in the form of various epigenetic marks, and these are transmitted. So this lady who's smoking is not only impacting this child in her womb, but also impacting the germ cells which are going to give rise to her grandchildren, and similarly that of the father. So it's very, very important that this awareness is increased, that our lifestyle, our choices, our thoughts, our diet are all impacting not only our health, but also the health of our children as well as our grandchildren. So there are several studies now which show you that it's the fathers, and as we delay the age of marriage, the germ cells accumulate a lot of damage, and the sperm, the male germ cell, is the only cell in the body which is not able to combat the DNA damage or the oxidative insult due to fast food or various environmental factors or advanced paternal age. And therefore, it's been seen that majority of de novo germline mutations arise in the sperm. And you can see there are several studies which show you that advanced paternal age leads to a large number of these disorders. It is related to neurodevelopmental disorders, schizophrenia risk, and how fast food leaves epigenetic signatures. And this is actually responsible. And it has been seen that a large number of people who have fast food, they have higher number of sperm having methylation of various genes which are critical for development. And there is a very elegant study which actually shows you that epigenetic mechanisms of paternal stress in offspring development and disease. It has shown you that others who smoke, old when they're advanced age, drinking, when they're exposed to endocrine receptors, smoking, all result in behavioral disorders, cognitive impairment, and so many other disorders in children. And again, this is showing you, this is very, very important because now there's a trend of delaying the age of marriage and having children even later. So you can clearly see that advanced paternal age affects the neurodevelopment, and therefore this is actually responsible for a large number of genetic and epigenetic diseases in children. And there are studies which have shown that with the advanced paternal age, there is an increase in the incidence of not only infertility, abortion, but also a steep increase in the incidence of neuropsychiatric disorders and autism. So this is our study, which I have just summed up, which shows you that various lifestyle factors, advanced paternal age, psychological stress like depression, exposure to excessive use of cell phones, heavy metals, air pollutants, all results in oxidative stress. And the sperm is the only cell which is not able to combat oxidative damage by virtue, because it's a very compact cell. It sheds majority of the antioxidants and its DNA is compact. Therefore, it's nuclear, it accumulates nuclear and mitochondrial DNA damage. And since if the damage is extensive and the people have been smoking for long periods, they're having unhealthy diet, there is high levels of inflammation and oxidative damage, this damage cannot be cleared by even the oocyte. And especially with advanced age, there may be oocyte which is having some optimal repair mechanism. And when the damage is extensive, it is not cleared and it is transmitted to the offspring. And one of the oxidative DNA adducts is very, very important because this induces de novo germline mutations, shorter telomeres and DNA damage, which is actually responsible for, you can see, childhood cancers and complex neuropsychiatric disorders and dominant genetic diseases. And now it's well known, and even we've done studies to show that autism, childhood depression, schizophrenia are all due to the DNA damage which accumulates in the sperm. So as I just told you, the sperm is a highly compact cell, not able to, mitigate the damage which is occurring by oxidative stress because majority of the antioxidants are shed off. And in addition to that, it has a very genome which is silent, largely silent. DNA repair mechanisms are highly truncated. And there are several studies which have now shown that the father's sperm accumulates oxidative DNA damage. And our studies also have shown, you can see here, that in infertile men and many men who go in for assisted conception, there's high level of DNA damage as compared to the controls. And you can see this long tail, which actually shows you is the fragmented DNA. And why I'm showing you these slides, well, I'll just show you how yoga can impact the DNA damage. And you can see here that in the infertile individuals, there are a large number of sperm towards the x-axis. These are the sperm with the DNA damage as compared to the controls. And our studies have shown that men who have unhealthy lifestyle, they suffer of oxidative DNA damage in the sperm, which results in de novo germline mutations and epimutations, which is responsible not only for various neuropsychiatric disorders in children, effects of genomic imprinting, genetic and epigenetic defects, but it results in post-zygotic mutations, which is responsible for childhood cancers like retinoblastoma. And in this study, we showed that how advanced paternal age results in abnormal methylation, aberrant methylation, which disrupts the epigenome, resulting in oxidative DNA damage and an increase in the incidence of autism. So now I'll talk on the impact of yoga on the sperm genome and the epigenome. These are just a few slides to show you. So we had these control studies in which we had two groups. One group which was doing yoga, and the other group did not do yoga, did not practice yoga. And you can see that in the group that practiced yoga, there's a steep increase, there's a significant increase in the total antioxidant levels. And this is very, very important because normally the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine actually advocates that we need to have 10 servings of fruits and vegetables to combat oxidative stress. But yoga actually switches on gene programs, those genes which are actually coding for antioxidants. So the gene for peroxide dismutase, catalase, and various other antioxidant genes, their levels they are switched on, and their expression levels increase, and the total antioxidant capacity increases. And in the group that did not practice yoga, there is no change in the total antioxidant capacity. And we also find that the level of this oxidative DNA adduct, which induces both mutations, epimutations, which result in neuropsychiatric disorders in the offspring, and genetic and epigenetic diseases, we find that with practice of yoga, there's a significant decline in the oxidative DNA damage. 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine is a marker of oxidative DNA damage, and this was the first study to show that yoga can impact right up till the DNA as well as the RNA. I'll show you the studies on the epigenome as well. And you can also see that when you have unhealthy lifestyle like fast food, it causes inflammation. And our studies have shown that yoga actually decreases the levels of inflammation and increases the level of T regulatory cells and helps to maintain immune homeostasis, whereas those cells which were actually inducing inflammation, their levels go down. And whereas the levels of post-yoga, the levels of the cells which are helping to maintain immune regulation go up. We also studied the levels of DNA methylation. As I told you, that when there is oxidative stress, it destabilizes the genome because there is hypomethylation. It causes genome-wide hypomethylation, which is one of the factors which is responsible for genomic hypermutability. It induces mutations and makes the genome unstable. And our studies have shown for the first time that post-practice of yoga, you can re-establish the methylation marks, and there is increase in the levels of 5-methylcytosine DNA, and the levels of hydroxymethylcytosine go down, which is occurring because of oxidative DNA damage. In addition to that, this is a study we did with the CCMB Hyderabad, where we actually showed that post-practice of yoga, we found that there were a large number of differentially methylated regions, and which correlated with the oxidative stress and the DNA damage, and a large number of genes post-practice of yoga, which are helping in maintaining implantation, promoting spermatogenesis, helping in the optimal functioning of the cytoskeletal elements. Their expression becomes hypomethylated, means it is increased, and which is helping to maintain the genomic integrity and promoting implantation and the birth of a healthy offspring. So why is there a decrease in oxidative stress? Again, this is the first study to show that yoga not only impacts the nuclear DNA, but it also impacts the mitochondrial DNA. It upregulates the expression of various genes which are helping to maintain the mitochondrial integrity. As mitochondria produce free radicals, it tends to damage the mitochondrial DNA. So the mitochondrial DNA accumulates damage, which is much more severe and sustained as compared to the nuclear DNA. And that is also one of the main causes of aging, because oxidative stress targets the telomeres, which shorten with age. And the telomeric DNA is the target of oxidative stress. Now, what happens with improvement in the mitochondrial integrity with practice of yoga? The ATP levels increase and the free radical levels decline. And oxidative stress is maintained because you find that there is also an increase in the total antioxidant capacity. So there is both an improvement of nuclear and mitochondrial DNA integrity. And you can see that not only in infertility, but the mitochondrial integrity impacts various diseases and is also very, very important for mental health, because the neurons demand a lot of energy, and when the mitochondrial energy declines, it is going to affect the neurons. And not only there is an increased expression levels of various genes which are helping to promote mitochondrial integrity, promoting its genomic integrity, but the mitochondrial copy number increases, and we also find the levels of NAD increase, which helps to maintain the nuclear and mitochondrial DNA crosstalk. Now, this is a study we showed you, and I just showed you in an earlier slide that how the number of germ cells which are towards the x-axis are more in people with DNA damage. Especially, this is a slide of infertile men. You can see that in a large number of these people go in for assisted conception, and therefore there is a higher incidence of genetic and epigenetic disease in children who are born with by the test tube babies. And you can see here that with practice of yoga, you can see that the number of dots which are towards the x-axis actually declines, showing that there is an improvement in the DNA integrity, and the levels of DNA damage significantly goes down post practice of yoga. And this is very important because this can reduce the incidence of genetic epigenetic disorders. And you can see in this study, we show that when fathers who practice yoga, their DNA quality improves, and this can actually reduce the incidence of certain childhood cancers. And now I talk of depression, and why it's very important is that with
Dr. Rima, I'd like to make a small pause here.
yes,
We'd like to have, slightly shorter.
so I just finish in 2
5
minutes,
minutes,
3 minutes.
because there are other panelists waiting as well. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So now I'll just talk on depression, which is one of the major causes of disability. And this is a randomized controlled trial where we showed that with practice of yoga, there was not only an increase in various neurotransmitters which promoted neuroplasticity. You can see here that the levels of BDNF, DHEA, which are like fertilizer for the neurons, they increase. And the low levels of serotonin actually causes depression. And you can see that post practice of yoga, the levels of serotonin increases, and melatonin, which is helping to maintain the circadian rhythm and a potent antioxidant, increases. And you can see there's a decrease in the severity of depression in the group that practiced yoga. And not only that, there was a decrease in the level of stress hormones, as well as the longevity genes, that is the sirtuins. And we also did a microarray analysis, and we find that a large number of genes which help to promote genome. And we also did a microarray analysis, and we find that a large number of genes which help to promote genomic integrity increase post practice of yoga. And this is important because people with depression actually tend to age much faster. So, and all 4 domains of quality of life actually show an improvement post yoga. So, what I would just like to highlight is that yoga is really the art of living, and it modulates the internal pharmacy by switching on gene programs which are beneficial for health. And by impacting the genome and the epigenome, both the nuclear and the mitochondrial DNA, it is playing a very vital role in switching on gene programs which are promoting neuroplasticity, building emotional and physical resilience. And thus, it's the need of the hour that we practice yoga and integrate it into our daily lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rima. That was very, very powerful. Modern science is able to go deep inside the human architecture and able to validate some of the ancient scriptures, as well as the kind of results that people get from daily practice. So that was really, really powerful, Dr. Rima, and very illuminating, I think, for all of us this morning. Please do share your presentation to the panelists as well as you go along. Dr. S.P. Mishra, may I please call on you to address the gathering. Namaskar, sir.
Are you audible to you?
Yes, clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duritani Parasu Yad Bhadram Tanna Asu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All our guests who were present during the inaugural session, and Arunji, who is coordinating this particular session. Just now we heard quite in detail Professor Rimaji, who made our task very easy, in the sense that she took us, all of us, in the scientific world, and based on the evidences, she proved beyond any doubt that yes, it has a definite impact. Yoga has a definite impact taking care of the mental wellness. I would like to initiate my discussion on 3 things, but first of all, giving you some facts. And these facts possibly will give us, some food for thought. May not be able to reflect many evidences and, the kind of researches which have been conducted in this area, but summarily, I would like to make a mention of it. The fact is that yoga is irrespective of caste, creed, region, and religion. This has become universal. Precisely, the evidence is more than 190 countries have started participating. And the countries belong to all category, so need not make a mention of it. So one very important aspect is the acceptance of yoga. Now this acceptance, if you look at, then basically people took it for humanity. And people took it for humanity because they found something which is integrating yoga with one another, kind of developing relationship. And this was established because of the fact, that people of this country, India, of course, taking the lead, but going to different other country, demand increases. Now the institution started coming up, and institution of both the types, practicing institutions and research-based institutions. So we'll find many countries have been able to set up, this kind of institution. So this is evidence that acceptance of yoga, and people will not like to set up any kind of research institution unless they find something meaningful, something useful. To make a mention of it, even a country like Iran, I was astonished when I was invited in a workshop on meditation. And in meditation workshop, I could see, the kind of researches they carried out and, the kind of work they were doing. Something, even I would say that we may like to learn from them. So humanity has been considered as the core area, in the world as such. And that is the reason why yoga has been accepted. I have been Vice Chancellor to Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya, which has maximum number of courses in the field of yogic science, starting from certificate course to diploma to postgraduate diploma, undergraduate course, master degree course, PhD program. And along with that, we have Yoga Arogya Clinic. And in Yoga Arogya Clinic, we keep on, inviting patients in different areas. Now, in order to understand now Yoga Arogya Clinic and the type of help that we are taking from this particular clinic, let me say that if you divide the whole yoga dimension, then we all understand it, yoga in relation to health. So, we have started talking much more about it, and particularly the Western countries, they have taken lead in this direction because they believe firmly if it is going to serve some purpose, if it is going to take care of the disorder, in any kind of physical disorder, we would like to accept it. And that is the reason why yoga in relation to health, this has become very common. And this is also the important and significant area of research in different countries. And in the area of health, the therapeutic yoga has gained importance. And now even the quality certification in the field of therapeutic yoga is gaining momentum through India. And we have started coming out with yoga therapists, so-called. Although, I would also like to mention that yoga has not been accepted as a true profession, separately. Like we don't recognize even the PhD holder or even person with any academic background to practice yoga independently and take care of the patient. So it is still regarded as complementary medicine system. And that is the reason why, yoga in relation to health, although it has been accepted, but still it is supposed to go a long way. Now, this is one dimension. Yoga in relation to human consciousness, this is another dimension. If you look at the traditional philosophy of yoga, then you will very well understand. I need not say many things, but few things I would like to make a mention here. In relation to yoga in relation to consciousness, many countries, particularly German Germany has taken lead, and they are just trying to understand how consciousness is developed, how we can maintain and sustain consciousness, and what are the basis of consciousness, and what are the impact areas of consciousness. So it is undergoing research because our saints and sages, they realized few things, they experienced few things, they made their life, they made their body as experiment, and that was the kind of laboratory. And they said many things, and whatever they said, whosoever practiced it, they found it working well. And that is the reason why we accepted it blindly. But now, world is trying to get into it, and they are trying to verify and re-verify the facts which has been established by our saints and sages. That is the reason yoga in relation to consciousness is gaining momentum. And the moment we are talking about the psychological wellness, mental wellness, I mean, it is very closely related to, yoga in relation to consciousness, because understanding the consciousness is very important in the sense that it is in one way restructuring, it is one way re-engineering, inner engineering of your body. The moment you are talking about the consciousness, in many, I will not like to give you many definition of consciousness and make you consciousness a perplexed one. But let me say, it's a inner engineering in the sense that, your thought process, your emotions, particularly the thoughts and emotions, has taken very seriously in this. And there is a possibility of reorganization of thoughts. There is a possibility of transformation of thoughts. And there is a possibility of arousal of emotions. That is a kind of possibility. And that is the reason why the consciousness, where we are talking about the inner engineering, we try to take care of the thoughts and emotion. And we believe very simply, in Hindi, there is a sentence, Bhav Samvednaon ki Gyan Gangotri. Bhav Samvedna, that is the sensitivity, we talk about it. So arousal of sensitivity. And it says that whether you are talking about the psychological wellness, or otherwise you are talking about the major problem the world is facing, and that we are talking, that's today's topic. We have started talking about it. It is basically the emotional aspect of it. And emotion cannot be purchased. There is nothing, no tablet. You take it and your emotion arouses. Nothing of that kind. So there is a mechanism. And this mechanism is through consciousness. And that is the reason why, we have found in our literature, Atmavat Sarva Bhutesu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sharve Santu Niramaya. We have started talking about Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So all these, when you start talking about it, then humanity, the moment you say these are the dialogues about the humanity. When you say Sarve Sukhina, Sab Log Sukhi Ho. So this is not a dialogue. This is a basic underlying philosophy of yoga. When you say Vasudeva Kutumbakam, सारी दुनिया हमारी है, सारी दुनिया हमारी पड़ोसी है. What could be a better humanity perspective of this? And that is the reason, in the yogic science, you will find there is a mechanism through which we try to promote Atmavat Sarva Bhutesu, we try to promote Sarve Bhavantu Sukhna, and we also, try to promote, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So this has become important and significant. Now, people are quite interested in knowing about it. What is the mechanism? What should I start doing? So that, the humanitarian aspect, starts taking place in the society. Society is going haywire, and all are searching out, some kind of mechanism for that. So in the yogic science, there are variety of combinations. that we have suggested. Now, combination is asana, pranayam, dhyan, yogic kriya. In addition to all this, we take certain implementing. Like, for the mental wellness, there is a set of asanas, there is a set of pranayam, and there is a set of meditations which have combined together. We have also, made it very clear that those who are taking allopathic or, Ayurvedic medicine, they should continue and take, these, combination as well. And then there is a group which is only taking medicine. There is another group which is taking no medicine and no yoga practices. And then we have tried to understand what happens. Gradually, even with NIMHANS, when we undertook this kind of research, you will surprise that the drug started reducing. The prescribed medicines started reducing. And the yogic practices started increasing. And then it was made very clear that in due course of time, you can keep on reducing the quantity of drug, and there will be a time when you will be required to leave the drug completely, and then possibly, you will start practicing and you will start living happily, with the help of yogic practices. So friends, there are a number of researches I can keep on quoting and show you the complete finding so that, you understand in much better way. But I'm just trying to say that this is a kind of possibility, and we have started doing it. We have started, practicing, asking people to practice many types of meditative practices. And in meditative practices, one is mindfulness. And mindfulness, is very one sentence. There is a saying, here and now, and then and there. There are two ways to look at here and now. What is happening here? And now, it is now situation. So now and here, as compared to that, then and there. What has happened then, when it has happened, where it has happened, then and there. So there is a flight. Always we take a flight from now and here to then and we immediately go back to then and there. And that becomes troubling part of it. So what happens in mindfulness? Mindfulness practice is making yourself aware about the current situation, the present situation, and be with that particular situation, leaving the past behind and not worrying all about the future practices of it. And, trying to understand the person, right? Trying to understand the situation, trying to understand, experience as much as possible with the now and here. So it is called now and here. Wherever you are trying to be aware from that particular situation. So mindfulness, I am with that. What is happening because of that? You go for the deep understanding of any issue, any matter which is coming to you. And deep understanding helps you to not only understand, then it takes you to different action because your thought and your action is combined together. I'm a little bit afraid looking at Arunji because when he is going to say yes or no, so I would say raise your finger, Arunji, and so that I can conclude. Pardon?
Already raising my finger.
Okay, so you have raised your finger, and I would just conclude. I would conclude by saying that it is just like we call it tap, swadhyay, and along with the swadhyay is the Ishwar Pranidhan, which Dr. Baswa Reddy was just making a mention of it. If you do tapa, we have three bodies. We call it physical body, astral body, and the casual body. This casual body is primarily responsible for the emotional aspect of it. So what happened? The behavioral purification, the purification of thought and purification of emotion. This is becoming important. And that is the reason why in yoga, we call tap, we we normally advocate, that Tap, Swadhyay, and Ishwar Pranidhan. You should go for that. There are many formula, like S2 plus O2 is equal to S2O, CO plus O2 is equal to CO2. There are many formula, established one. So is the case in case of yogic science. There is a set of formula which have been given. And I'm sure those who would practice it, they would like to move towards the humanitarian, because they would understand pretty well, man is not by structure, man is by nature. So the moment we understand people as a structure, since he has one nose, one mouth, and 2 ears, 2 eyes, so he is a person, he is a man. No, it's by nature. And in order to build up a nature of different kind, I would conclude by saying yoga is one area you can take help of it, and through this, lot of modification is a kind of possibility. So I wish, people have already started practicing. I did not say it's a great moment for all of us to celebrate, and especially, a great moment to thank CII and MDNY, people like Radheshyamji, people like Dr. Baswa Reddy ji, people like Subodh ji, who have taken lead in this direction and who would like to guide in, to make this yoga popular enough, for mental well-being. So with these words, I would like to thank all my panelists whose name I didn't take. So they are my friends. And I would say thanks CIA for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra ji, for very insightful and wise words. I now call upon Dr. Raghavendra Rao for a special address. Raghavendra Rao ji, namaste.
Sir.
Very good to see you.
Good afternoon, everybody here. It's nice to see all of you talking on the cause of yoga for humanity. And I just want to go for a very short presentation because I also have to join for another meeting now. I'll just share my slides for a moment. So we all know about, as Mishra ji told very clearly about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, whole world is a family. The cause of humanity is where when we have empathy for our fellow human beings. And this is very much important because what yoga does is much more beyond a simple asana or a pranayama or controlling the breath or the posture of your body. It is much beyond. It goes into emotions, it goes into behaviors, it goes into consciousness, where we are all tied up with one another and where we have empathy for each other, we have love and belonging for each other. And that is what Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is. And that is, this concept is needed when you want to talk about yoga for humanity. And today, why we are talking about humanity is to see that yoga is not just for the people who are healthy, people who need a therapeutic succor from some diseases. It is for everybody, all sections of the population, the poor sections of the population, the orphans, children living in the orphans, people living in the old age homes, the juvenile delinquents living in juvenile homes, people who are having substance abuse, people who are in the vulnerable population who have HIV infections, people who are in the jails, okay, or are incarcerated in the jails. So all these people also require yoga in some form. So today I'll just go and take you into the aspects of yoga, how yoga has been used in these kind of situations and what evidence is there for us to say that yoga can be beneficial. So we all know that in these kind of populations, there's tremendous amount of psychological stress, there's decreased cognitive function, human performance is really curtailed because you just have to leave for that particular day. Okay, and each day is very difficult for them to go by, and that being the case, trying to expect some good amount of performance, expecting some amount of motivation, enthusiasm in them is very, very difficult. Okay, so this is what we require to look at. This population is, how do we motivate these people? How do we these people so that they become very productive members of the community or society, where they have a will to live and they're having a motivation to succeed. So these are very, very important aspects when you start talking about yoga for humanity in these sections of populations. So we all know about the brain and brain development and what models this brain. Because if you see, you look at the behavioral disorders, look at the stress, everything starts from the brain. Okay, and you have genetic disorders which can really affect the growth and development of the brain. And we have social environment around some people, for example, juvenile delinquent children, orphan children, okay, deaf, who are blind. Okay. So all these people have some amount of stigma attached to them. They already have a genetic disorder, they have a health complication, already having a disability. And around them, the whole social society around them reacts to those kind of disability and what opportunities are provided to them also really shapes their brain development as well. And apart from this, the stress they undergo when they are surviving in this kind of environment is a very, very important role in modeling the brain. So we know what are the positive influences now are nutrition, we have environmental stimulation, learning, and social contact, which I just talked about now. So if you give a very good learning environment, a good social opportunities for them, a good amount of social support for these kind of populations, then you can have brain development. And also what is known is that yoga can also play a very, very important role in this kind of. So we all know the brains, but I was talking about community home girls, I was talking about people who are juvenile delinquents, you're talking about behavioral problems in orphans. Okay, so all these things, you see the brain development, it is a maximum during the fetal, during the birth phase, when the fetal age it happens. And during the birth phase, the brain development is a maximum and keeps reversing up to 30 years of age. So this is the very crucial period of when the children are are growing up into adolescence and then going up into the youth era. In that particular period is where you can really model the brain and you can shape the brain in whichever way we want to. So if you see juvenile delinquents, if you see orphans, you see people who are in community home girls, all these things, they have a lot of social stresses around them, which is led to these kind of behavioral problems in these people. And you can really take care of this by working working on this kind of population in a very, very early age as well. So we'll just look at what yoga is all about. I won't go into definitions, all of you know about it. You first need to calm them down, reduce their aggressiveness, and make them to learn to think about what the situation is. So how does yoga can improve performance in this kind of populations? Study was done long time. A lot of studies have been done where yoga is known to improve perception, both visual perception, auditory perception, improve motor skills, improve mental speed on a neurocognitive tasks, and also improve higher brain functions in these populations. So there's again another study which was done using both in pilots as well as in community home girls, which shows that yoga can also help in improving visual perception. Both these lines are almost same, but the way the concavity and convexity of the arrows in the end shows how these lines look different. One looks small, one looks large, but actually they are of the same size. So this is optical illusion, which is more seen in pilots and in drivers who go for long distances. But also, this is also affected in community home girls as well. We have seen this. So by using yoga intervention, we have seen this kind of optical illusion, especially related to higher brain functions, are also modulated by using yoga interventions. Similarly, auditory perception on some task, visual based on evoked potentials and fMRI. Some of the studies have shown that auditory evoked potentials are are known to be improved, especially in people with blindness, okay, especially in blind children who have very good sense of hearing. It improves information processing and transfer very fast in the thalamic regions of the brain and association cortex of the brain as well. So a lot of studies have been done in this particular area as well. So even these people can also benefit from yoga interventions. So yoga helps in improving motor skills, especially in children with juvenile homes, even children with autistic disorders and Down syndrome. Studies have been shown that yoga can improve hand steadiness, fine motor skills, tweezer, dexterity, hand grip strength, repetitive motor activity in this kind of population. So these are things which are probably lost in these kind of people, and they don't have these fine motor skills because they don't have good hand steadiness. The proprioceptive sense is is not really working properly in people with Down syndrome. So in this kind of population, also yoga can be used to remove this remove this kind of disability as well. Higher brain functions, a lot of work has been done in this area on strategic planning, spatial orientation, spatial memory scores. These have been done in both rural school children, community home girls, as well as in juvenile homes as well. A lot of work has shown that this population, which is also confined in the certain homes, special homes, these people can also benefit by using a yoga intervention there. Okay? A lot of work on spatial memory scores have been done in obese or adolescents, especially who have low BMR. So right nostril breathing is known to improve BMR. It can be useful in case of obesity in adolescent children who have eating disorders. So I'll not go into more. So what you can see with all this kind of data here is you can bring all-round personality development in both children, especially the socially disadvantaged groups. Yoga can be really, really useful if it is given at a very, very young age. Okay. So thirdly, we see yoga in prisons. There are shown a lot of studies have been happening in this area, shown to reduce depression, anxiety, shown to implement in behavioral controls. It helps in reducing aggressive behavior in the case of prisons who have been wanted for major crimes such as murder or other things. Okay, it's going to bring about a behavioral change. It is going to improve sleep quality and increases psychological emotional well-being. A lot of studies have gone in this particular area as well, in prison inmates as well. So this is, in a nutshell, you can say that yoga can be used all sections of the population and not just the healthy person or anybody looking for a therapeutic benefit. So everybody can be taken care of with yoga, and that makes yoga a very important tool for humanity. And this thank you all for a patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raghavendra Rao. Many years of experience gone into those very few slides, covering a lot of population. Very heartened to see in your presentation as well as Dr. Rima's presentation how there's a focus on children and youth as well. This is a very good sign because investing in the children or the younger population obviously can have fundamental results in the days and the years to come. So that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Rao, for your presence. Bahut acha laga.
Thank you, sir.
I call upon Dr. Hemant Bhargav from NIMHANS to speak next. Welcome, Dr. Bhargav.
Dr. Hemant, you're on mute. May I request you to kindly unmute yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Arun sir. I thank CII and Ministry of Ayush for this opportunity, and my namaste to all respected panelists. So in my very brief presentation here, I'm going to talk about how yoga can contribute in mental well-being and what work we have done in this area. So we can see that the WHO definition of health does not focus only on the disease, but well-being is a very important domain at all the levels, and my previous speakers also have emphasized this point. In well-being, stress is one factor which we need to address now in today's time, especially as you said, Arun sir, that the times are such, that everything is very uncertain and there is deep stress, people in all walks of life suffer through. So this is a Shubhashita in Sanskrit that says that in between Chitta and Chinta, there is a difference of only one dot, these two words, and the Chitta actually burns the dead, but Chinta burns living. So this is a very, very important issue. Now, what is stress? We understand that stress is a demanding situation, whether it is internal or external situation that demands a response. And when it becomes overwhelming, individual reports certain changes in the physiology, the stress hormones go up, the blood pressure, heart rate goes up, and we see that the allostatic load that is there in the hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis increases, and stress has now been connected to the precipitation and aggravation of many of the non-communicable disorders. Fundamentally, when yoga looks at stress, it says that the balance between the internal and external movement of the human consciousness is very important. Now we see that in our education system also, and the kind of stimulation that the mind gets from the technology, from media, all our senses are drawn outside. So there is nothing in our education system that gives individual a pause, a rest, a relaxation, and makes him think that there is an internal world also, a world of emotion, a world of intellectual conflicts, a world of we can say happiness that comes from within. So therefore, the whole domain of the yogic understanding by Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says that you need to prepare yourself and then do pratyahara, that is, you have to turn all the sensory organs inward and take a journey within, so that there is a yogasthaha, a kind of establishment in one's own nature, and kuru karmani, and then the action outside. So we are drawn outside all the time. We need something to go inwards. Stress is not only common in general people. We see at specific professional people also go through more amount of stress. It is known that teachers have extra stress, doctors have 20% more stress in general population. People who work, in police officials, army professionals, IT professionals, they report further higher stress levels as compared to general population. So even the students, we see that report very high stress level, and it is here that yoga can come as a very useful tool. So there is evidence of very high level of stress in this population. And now yoga, with the the research that has happened in the last 2 decades, there is a firm biological basis of yoga that it can bring well-being at the mental level in several levels. So it can have a biological basis in increasing the neuroplastic factor, generating new connections of neurons in the brain. It can increase certain brain areas. It can enhance cognition, sleep, and reduce depression and stress. So this is a community level study that was funded to us by MDNIY Ministry of Ayush, where for a 1 month duration we approached 20 centers of different kind of corporate sectors, schools, banking sector, and police officials. And what we did was we appointed a yoga therapist, and we sent that yoga therapist to these centers. Through expert validation, a 5-minute yoga break capsule was developed, and the yoga therapist taught these to these people for 2 weeks, morning and evening. As they came to office, it was done for 5 minutes, and before they leave the office, it was again for 5 minutes. So this is how the 5-minute yoga break capsules were conducted in the banks, in the colleges for teachers, in post offices, in BMRCL, the Bangalore Metro Rail Corporation, and for the Siddhapura police station close by. This is the yoga break capsule. Simple stretching followed by breathing practices, and then ending with Brahmari. So stretching, then forward and backward bending asana, Nadi Shuddhi pranayama, and then the Brahmari pranayama. Very, very simple kind of intervention that has very, very easy to learn also. So these are the kind of thing. And when this was applied just for a duration of 2 weeks, 5 minutes as you come for work and 5 minutes before you leave the work. When this was done, we observed that there was results. When all the data of 100 people were combined from 5 centers, we observed that perceived stress levels actually reduced by 23%. There was improvement in the night sleep quality. Investing 10 minutes at your workplace, 30% improvement in the quality of sleep. Their neck pain and back pain actually reduced by 60%. Attention and concentration improved by 18%, and people started interacting better because they would gather together for this 5-minute yoga, do the yoga together, and there would be a kind of a connection that we call with yoga, yuj means to connect. Similarly, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we started free yoga sessions for people who were quarantined, who had mild COVID symptoms, and this was published in Asian Journal of Psychiatry. These people who enrolled, 95 people enrolled, 54 completed 1 month duration, and we observed significant improvement in their well-being and reduction in their stress level after 1 month. So this shows that delivering yoga intervention through telemode also is quite a feasible option. And we continued, on public demand these sessions, and now we have 2 years of follow-up data. We started it on World Health Day, 7th April 2020, and just recently we completed 2 years of our data, and people show sustained improvement and adherence to these tele yoga interventions. So this is the way the yoga sessions were conducted for our patients also through the telemode during the COVID-19 pandemic, those who are admitted here, and still 60 to 70 people log in every day and attend these sessions. So this is the Zoom ID. Anybody who wants to log in the morning at 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. To do these pranayama, which can enhance the lung function and reduce psychological stress. There is no password, and without any registration, anybody can log in. These sessions are happening at morning 7 a.m. and evening 4 p.m. from Monday to Friday. Similarly, we developed and validated a yoga program for our students. Now in our NIMHANS, there are around 1,500 students who study at postgraduate level, and we developed and validated a yoga module for them. And this module was taught in the hostels at NIMHANS when they were quarantined and when they were under a lot of stress. Similarly, we conducted yoga sessions for children. We developed 2 modules, yoga for children between 5 to 10 years, and another module for yoga for children between 10 to 15 years. And this module went on throughout the pandemic period for children who were not going to school. So we helped them, and we have some data which showed that both parent and teacher rating shows that the children were able to perform better in their telelearning, and children became less irritable, and they started, becoming more physically fit also. So this is the overall summary of what researches we have done in different domains of mental health for elderly, for depression, in alcohol dependence at NIMHANS. This is a very recent paper that we have published in British Journal of Psychiatry Advances that says that what every psychiatrist should know about yoga and mental health. So preventive psychiatry is a very important upcoming thing now, and we have to now escalate this and bring yoga to the grassroots level. Lot of research has been done. If you really look at the literature, we were just doing a meta-analysis for depression, and we found that there are already 20 RCTs, high quality RCTs, that have been published. Now, how much more research will you require to apply it into your clinics now? So the question has come is, people are just doing yoga research, but we do not see the ground level application of it. So now we have to motivate people to really apply this. This book is a JP publication which summarizes all these evidences. It is a textbook that we have been using for our MSc Yoga Therapy and postdoctoral fellowship in integrative psychiatry for MD psychiatry fellow that we have applied. And there is a very encouraging response. The second batch, we got around 12 applications, and there is a competition to do PDF in integrative psychiatry. So in conclusion, I would like to say that yoga research, especially in the area of mental health, should start translating into applications at the ground level now. And yoga can be a very useful tool in improving well-being. And tele yoga also is quite a feasible option that removes the barrier of adherence. And we see that it is applicable for all age groups. And this 5-minute yoga break app also has been developed by Ministry of Ayush now. So when are we going to apply? Everything is ready. We need now. So I thank all our collaborators. I thank my mentors. And this is our team at Integrative Medicine NIMHANS. Namaste.
Bhargav, very moving address at a very, very important forum. Also very lucid and concise, and wonderful summary as well. And I'm also again glad to see how children are also being is part of our target group, so to say. And the fact that an online era is also equally beneficial for spreading practice of yoga. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhargav. And last but not the least, I'd like to call upon Professor Bhogal for his address. Namaste, Professor Bhogal. You'll have to unmute yourself. Abhi mute par hai.
Thank you very much. I am Dr. Bhogal, and my education is in psychology, doctorate, and I am Joint Director of Research in Kevaladham. And I was told that I have to give some theoretical exposition of yogic view of wellness, some 20 minutes and 20 minutes some kind of practice. If it is so, I presume that I will get 40 minutes. And if there is any other things, you may please tell me. My topic is yoga for humanity, mental wellness, Indian perspective, rather yogic perspective. Now, I have this experience in our institute. We have a philosophical literary research department as well as scientific research department. When we take some instructions, we are confronted with some kind of duality.
Sorry, Professor Bhogal, if I may just interrupt for a minute.
Yes.
Yeah. So this session, as I discussed with you, you have 10 minutes slot with you. The session, what we had mentioned, that is happening on 21st June. Yeah. So in this
time
session,
you want to give me?
No, sir. I mean, this is a panel discussion where we have allotted 10 minutes to all the panelists.
No, it is 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. So the session what you were referring, that is on 21st June, the elaborated one on the International Day of Yoga, which CII is doing separately.
So I presume it is only 10 minutes now.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
I
sir.
will try to summarize it.
Thank you.
My point is, in our institute, we have scientific research department and philosophical literary research department. And we are confronted with one problem, that the concepts in our scriptures are not matching that of the concept which are there in modern science. For example, mind. So mind is a merely medium in our scriptures. That is, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Shariram Rathamev. Buddhistu Sarathi Vidhi, Mana Pragrame Vachan. Mind is the medium. But then mind in modern science is something they do not know exactly what it is. Descartes was the first to speak that we have certain concepts in mind and that is reflected in our behavior. But then Riley in 1949 confronted this statement. He said that no, whatever we have inherent within us, in our impressions, predisposition, so that is sanskar. So he is coming very close to the concept of sanskar, and he says that not necessarily you think and it is reflected in your personality, but rather it is something which is already there within you, that is sanskar, that is klesha, and that is reflected in your behavior. So such kind of things are there, and therefore I ventured to speak something about the very fundamental paradigm shift in understanding the concept of mind. Mind is just a medium. And like in Kathopanishad, I have spoken about it, we have 5 horses as 5 senses, and they are tied to the rope, that is rain. And rain is the only medium. And Dr. S.P. Mishra has spoken about certain things which are very important, but rather it has to be spoken in terms of, psychology, which I'm trying to make here, some effort. So Dr. Indra Sen, sometime back, Dr. S.P. Mishra knows him, in Pondicherry he did a lot of work in Indian concept of personality. And he spoke that the day when we know absolute joy, and we can employ this absolute joy in having revolution made in the field of psychiatry. And he has spoken about the concept of prasad, that is the absolute joy. Now, this absolute joy is self-existent and objectless. Now, such kind of things we need. And then only our researchers would have a kind of revolution. Otherwise, we are having the concept from the Western world, mental health. In fact, this word is misnomer in yoga. On the other hand, Lord Vashisht has said that mano prashamano upaya yoga ityabhidhyate. Mind, when it is calmed down, and then it becomes a fit instrument for transcendence, and then we enter into samadhi, and that some adha is a complete balanced state, wellness. So such kind of things are required, and then we will see. Therefore, I have some conceptual understanding here to put in Yoga Darshan. For example, spirituality. Now, spirituality, we only have lip service given, but then what exactly it is? It is given by Shankaracharya Govardhan Peeth. When we have Satsarup, it means you have sense of security within, and then you have Chit Padarth, that means you are having knowing a stance towards everything, and then you have Anant Padarth, absolute joy you have, then Mukta Sarup, you have a kind of absolute freedom, comprehensive freedom, and then Isha Sarup. You are good, you want to let others be good. That means Sarve Sukhina Sattu, what S.P. Mishra has said, Doctor. So that is required, and then first 3, Satchidanand, it is comprehensive awareness. And the last 2 are Mukta Sarup and Isha Sarup is comprehensive freedom. Now this comprehensive freedom and comprehensive awareness is nothing but put together, feeding to each other, and it is spirituality. And then we can go for some sort of other scriptures we have always there, like Kathopanishad only says that Paranchikhadi Vetrina Swayambhu, Tasmat Paran Pashyati Nantaratman, Kashi Dhira Pratyek Atmanam, Akshidabrit Chakshu Amritaktam Icchan. We have to say that there is something beyond interoception. Exteroception, everybody knows. Interoception is non-solar kind of feeling, which is deep inside. And then only we can have a justice with the world and our own wellness. So wellness, because what is the definition of wellness? When a person is able to know his own limitations and his strengths and his personality, behavioral pattern, and then he can achieve whatever he wants in his life, plus he can contribute something to the good of society. This is the definition of wellness. So for that, the Indian concept is quite appealing, and we have to work on it. So we are here in humble way working in Kevaladhama, and then there will be a revolution as said by Dr. Idris, that the prasad concept, why don't we work on it? Why, what it is? When Lord Krishna says, prasade sarva dukhanam hani rasa vijayate prasanna kirsu yashabuddhi paryavtishate, and then raga dvesha viktestu vishanindriyacharan. When we have to handle raga and dvesh, and then we have our buddhi staryam, and then we have all that. Unless when we do this, then there will be a revolution in wellness. Otherwise, we will have some kind of change. Sometimes it is no change, sometimes it is good change, sometimes it is something, nothing is there. So we have to slowly come to this stage. Mental health concept actually is the Western term. We have mental calmness. So let us come together and we will do something together. And then something is possible. That is what I have to say. I think 5-7 minutes are there. And unless some other things are there, I will continue. Thank you very much. It is a kind of appeal that let's do something, whatever is there in our old scriptures. They are the reading light to us, and there may be some kind of revolution in the field of psychiatry, in the field of psychology, in the field of wellness. That is my say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhogal. I particularly like the contextual approach, which is a more generic approach, and then connecting it with the more fundamental sciences of modern times. It's a wonderful idea that we can propagate. I would like to thank all the August speakers for making their presentations. I realize that there is a limitation of time. I always say this, that thousands of years of knowledge and wisdom compressed into 10 minutes is an almost impossible task. But this gathering has managed to do that this afternoon. So thank you for your participation. And I hand you over to Nirja and the CII team as of now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pandala, for the wonderful session moderated by you. May I now request Dr. Vinay Chandra Banavati to kindly deliver his vote of thanks for this program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neeraja ji. I think Arun Pandala ji has done an excellent job of thanking everyone and also moderating the session so well that we are just about 1 o'clock now with all the speakers and with their quite insightful presentations. So many thanks to our moderator, Shri Arun Pandala ji. Thank you so much. And I would also like to place on record our gratitude to all the eminent speakers, Dr. Rima Dadaji, Dr. Raghavendra, Dr. S.P. Mishra ji, Dr. Hemant Bhargav, and Dr. Ranjit Bhogal ji for their succinct presentation. I mean, as Pandala ji was pointing out, it's years and years of hard work. Like we could see in the presentation of both Rima ji and Bhargav ji and also Raghavendra ji, where quite a number of studies have been just compressed into few slides, whereby an attempt is made to give an overall overview of the kind of research and the progress that we have made in presenting the ancient heritage in a language that is palpable to modern society, that is the language of science. I think in this regard, we are really grateful, not just for this session, but for the kind of work that you have been doing, and that too coming from esteemed institutions like NIMHANS or AAMS. Like, in fact, this actually enhances the credibility of the whole discipline itself. So thank you very much for all the work that you have been doing and for all this, taking your time and presenting this on this forum, which focused on mental health and well-being, which is one of the important areas where yoga can contribute significantly. Similarly, I would also like to thank all our esteemed panelists in the starting with our chairman of the session, Dr. Subodh Tiwari ji, then Pandit Radha Krishna Mishra ji, and then Dr. Ishwar Basavareddy ji, and also Vaidya Katocha ji, who couldn't join us but has shared his wishes for the session, and also the entire team at CII for coordinating this event and commemorating the 100-day celebrations leading into International Day of Yoga, which I think is a very important approach, because it's not just, as many speakers pointed out, it's not just one day that is important, but a constant reminder that this has to be part of our lifestyle. And this 100-day approach has become successful in embedding this thought that this is to be done every day. This is a thought, this is a practice that we need to engage with on a daily basis. So once again, I thank MDNIBI and CII for taking up this project in a joint manner. So with this, warm wishes and gratitude to all our participants who have joined and have been to this session will be later followed by a practice at the in Goa, where we are celebrating a physical practical event this evening. So thank you once again, and namaste.
Thank you, sir, for your enriching views. And on behalf of CII, I would like to sincerely thank each of our panelists who have made it and been able to join us. Thank you for your participation. I'm sure under your leadership guidance, we will take new heights of yoga to the world in the coming time. Thank you all once again for joining us. Thank you. Namaskar.